Hey folks, this is John Clement for Laxut Village News Network, and I am here with Mike McLellan of Edmonton Rush. Hi Mike.
Hi guys.
So we are going to talk lacrosse with Mike McLellan, and I figured we'd start at the beginning, but not sort of dark and stormy night type beginning, which is not a biography documentary. We're just going to start with, Mike, how did lacrosse intersect with your life?
Well, John, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here. This is a nice way to start off the weekend. I started, it's kind of a story where I was in Canada. When we grew up, we played summer lacrosse in the summertime. And I was a baseball guy, hockey in the winter, baseball in the summer. My younger brother actually started playing lacrosse, and a couple years before I started, and I kind of saw him play, and I was like, oh, that might be something I might be getting into. But I was, like I said, I was a baseball guy, real into it. Toronto Blue Jays were winning World Series back in the day, so that was kind of nice. But I started picking up lacrosse stick with my brother, just playing in the backyard kind of thing. And the following summer, after his first summer of him playing, I went out for just kind of a rep travel team type thing. I was about 11 years old. And then started playing, kind of trying to do dual, both baseball and lacrosse. Schedules were extremely tough. I probably owe my mom tons of gas money, tons of meals. I'll eventually get those to her eventually one day, but
I'm sure she's got like a notebook or something where she's keeping a list,
a daily log of back in the day. So as baseball somewhat leveled off, as a lot of sports do, I put all my focus in lacrosse, and lacrosse kind of took over when I was about 14, 15. That was my summer job per se, I guess, and that's where it all started. And then eventually had the opportunity to play with my brother a little bit down the road, which was a pretty cool thing. When we played on the same team, which we never did before up until that time, and that was a big thrill for not only me, obviously my family to see that.
Then you wonder why you never played on the same team, but why did it never happen before?
Right, yeah, just the age difference, a little bit of the gap, and then eventually when we got to a point where the gap was a little longer, we got to play together. And, we got to kind of take our frustrations out on each other. He was a goalie, which I should credit him. Maybe even today helping with me, who's a player, obviously a shooter, an offensive guy, and so I got to get him better. He got to get me better. So that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah, so it sounds like you get along with your brother.
Yeah,
because they say friends can help friends get better. So if brothers who are friends can do even more, probably.
There's always incidences. Those some are some will kind of I'll take with me till I die. But he's a guy that I've known all my life, obviously, and he was in my wedding. I talked to him, and he had a successful lacrosse career himself, which was great to see. He's the only thing I'll probably regret that he won more championships than I did, and at different levels and in different leagues. And I always, whenever I go home, I get to see those rings, and that is what it is. He was at the right spot at the right time, and we both made a little money out of it.
Yeah, and two different people, so you had two different careers.
Sure.
So, speaking of the career, then, now you started, with Edmonton Rush. You've been other places, and now you've come back to them. It's kind of come full circle.
Yeah.
So, as far as that level of play, how did you get up to that level with Edmonton Rush the first time?
So my draft year, I went to college. So I went to college in Mercyhurst, Erie, Pennsylvania. So when my time was done at Mercyhurst, graduating, there's a draft. NLL has a draft, like many other professional sports, and that was my draft year. And you get caught up reading, people's draft projections and stuff, and what's going to go on. And that year happened to be Edmonton's first year of existence. And the draft was in Edmonton. They wanted some of the guys that were going to be projected top picks and to get up there. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it because I was still actually in school taking classes, and couldn't make that long trip from Erie, Pennsylvania up to Edmonton, Alberta. So I kind of just had a buddy. We were kind of watching it online and listening to it online, and Edmonton eventually traded back in the draft to a number down a little low, and eventually some guys got the normal guys that were kind of high projected got taken. Then obviously my phone rang, and it was kind of not to the NFL style, NBA style, where you're in the green room and get a call, but it was a pretty neat call. Their GM at the time, owner, was on the phone and made the call, and that was a big thrill. And I was at a restaurant with some of my, good friends that I was still, at the school with, and and had a little celebratory toast. And then a few minutes later, which is kind of a funny story, I ended up getting traded on draft day to Arizona. So, let alone I was probably Edmonton Rush at that point for maybe about a half hour.
Right, that's why I clarified. Edmonton
Right.
Rush the first time.
Right, so about a half hour, then it was Arizona, then it,
But it's an important part of your story, though.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, in Arizona at that time, it was an extremely good team. They didn't have any picks that high in the draft. I guess they saw something that was, I'm very fortunate they did, and that, that made me go from a cold weather Edmonton, which I didn't mind, to sunny desert in Arizona, which I'd never been to at that time, and that's where it all started.
All right, so we've got, we don't have time. Maybe in the future we'll do the Mike McLellan story or something, but, it's just a little interview, so so things have come full circle. You're back with Edmonton Rush again, but somewhere along the line, you picked up that nickname Maestro. How did that happen?
Story I've told, this is probably maybe the 58th time I've told it, but it's still, people still get a kick out of it, and I do too. I think it's, kind of a part of me and a part of who I am as a person now, and obviously as a player. That first year again back in Arizona, the guy that was handling PR at the time, he was like the media relations guy, Rick Bonus Jr., shout out, in Denver, how you doing? He was in charge of kind of getting together, like I said, the program and getting together guys and, making sure the media guy looked up the front. And back then, and it's probably still those guys with like nicknames was a big thing, and that, for the crowds to kind of relate to and have a laugh at, or and he came up to me and asked if I had a nickname at the time. I didn't. At that time it was just, I didn't have a name that it could end in like, I could short form it down to like, if I was last name Williams, you can turn it into Willie, etc. like that. But didn't have anything like that. And he's like, oh, let me think about something. I'll come back, with you in a day or so. Sure enough, we're in training camp that year, and he comes by, and there's a group of us eating lunch before we had, some practices going on through the whole day, tests and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, I think I got something for you. And we're like, all right. And he's like, and they got on a thing where if you have like the same first initial and last initial, they want to kind of keep it, the same, so they wanted something with an M. So he came up to me and he's like, oh, I was watching Seinfeld last night, and just sitting around kind of, doing some work, and he's like, they had this character on there named the Maestro. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and he was just like kind of distinguished gentleman. Those might not, I'm kind of paraphrasing now, but, and he had some, his antics were a little off. And it kind of just hit me that, maybe you could be the Maestro. And I kind of looked at him and if there was no one probably in the group of me eating lunch, that name probably would have not existed today, because there was probably a handful of my teammates around there that just kind of said, that's it, you're sold, I don't care what's happening, you're a rookie, that's the name, it's incredible.
You don't get a choice.
You don't get a choice, exactly. And so, sure enough, the programs came out later that first, in January, and my parents were seeing that, and family members, and like, they're asking, what's with this Maestro? And she had to tell them the story, and that's how it went. And I thought, there's some of these nicknames, they fizzle out after, a year, people don't go with them, but this is we're almost 10 and a half years later. I still have people, I'm probably in some people's cell phones as Maestro, so it's okay. I don't mind. As long as they're calling my name, I don't care.
There you go. Well, fair enough. Yeah. So, now it's July, for those of you who may be watching this, who knows when, on the internet. And so we are, it's going to be like in the 90 degrees out here in St. Louis. So Mike, what's your philosophy of how to treat yourself or what to do for the off season? What works best for you?
As we kind of discussed a little off camera earlier, I learned kind of not the hard way, but the way to kind of treat your body is, you are a professional athlete, and you are getting paid. Somebody is paying you, and you do have a job to do. Earlier in my day, I was kind of a little more arrogant, just kind of relying on, skill and eating burgers and, doing whatever, and, enjoying my couch time. But as I got into the league, probably about halfway through, 3-4 years in, I should say, where, guys are coming in and this is the time where American lacrosse and Canadian lacrosse was blending a lot. We had a lot of American field lacrosse players who were attempting to play the box game, and people will know that some of these players, and I don't want to name drop some of these guys, but the Paul Rabels and the Greg and Stephen Pisers, John Orsons, these guys that I played with are complete freak athlete animals, and they treat their bodies, and the old adage of treat your body like a temple, putting in they're animals at it. I kind of got the hint that I probably should, maybe take it a little more serious, and I did. I tried to cut out, not everything, because I do have, obviously I have the sweet tooth. Obviously enjoy a burger here and there and all that kind of stuff. But I tried to, take it seriously, take it as a job. Like I said, someone's paying me to do something and to perform, and I need to live up to that. I don't want to be that kind of he could have played 10 years but only played 2 years type guy. I want to be that guy that he came in and we didn't think he could play 10 years, but he proved people wrong and he did. And that's kind of where it kind of took off. That probably 3-4 year in where I kind of really took the summers, took the time leading in the fall, leading up to training camp, that I got to be ready to go day one. I can't be ready to go game one. I got to be ready to go practice training camp day one. I don't want anyone, I've earned a spot. I don't want anybody taking my spot. That was kind of, it's an old tip that, everyone uses. You got to be greedy when it comes to, these spots. There's not that many around, and especially in a league like this where at one time there's 10 teams and 25 guys on a team. That's not a lot of people. There's so many people playing lacrosse. Now it's even less teams, and so that's less spots. So you gotta be greedy with that, and that's what I did, and helped me play another 5-6 years after that.
Okay, now and it's a little bit of our pre-camera discussion. You'd mentioned the 2 parts of off season. There's recovery from the previous season, and there's gearing up for the next one. So do you divide the summer into the come down and the build back up? Yeah,
there's definitely a little hill and valley. I mean, fortunate for me, I don't know whether it be my playing style or maybe my lack thereof playing style, that I didn't have any kind of serious injuries where they used that, after the season ends there in June, July, to surgery, recover, and then you have that, you have an 8-10 week gap where you don't do anything. So I was very fortunate that I didn't have any of those. So I was able to continue, go back home, go to Toronto and play, continue to play lacrosse, and perfect the craft, get better, get more knowledgeable, play with unbelievable players, and then ride that into, when that season ends, depending on how far you go. Use the time in September, October, usually kind of, there's weeks off, there's weeks on, type thing. You got to kind of monitor. You can't just overtrain yourself. You can't be, what you're, I kind of knew my limits. Mm-hmm. As you grow older, you get to know, I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to get any bigger.
Yeah, we're not Terminators. Right. We have human bodies.
I felt that if I shot, 80 miles an hour when I was 25 at my peak, I'm probably going to shoot 85. If I'm lucky to shoot 85 when I'm 35, that's great. So that was kind of my, my thing going into it. I just tried to, keep myself healthy, keep myself out of anything that would maybe, don't want to have any kind of freak injury. Try to, keep myself, like I said, healthy, ready to go, motivated. That's kind of a big thing. You don't want to get anything get stale. So I try to, try new things. Not just sit there and go run out on a track. I want to, you can run up hills, you can run, ladders, you can do cone stuff. Trying to change it up so it gets a little fresh, gets a little, a little rejuvenation, a little more interest. That was kind of
that's good for your body too, because your body will adapt to whatever you're doing. Yeah. And you don't necessarily want to give it a chance to do that too much.
Yeah. And it's like the league got bigger, and the teams, got more focused. They got, they expanded with not only their coaching staff, but also their training staff, and those guys that I've benefited from them immensely with some of the tips they've provided, programs they've outlined for me to do to strengthen your core, strengthen your legs, strengthen your upper body, strengthen anything you really want to do. And they were extremely helpful, and some of them they do that out of their spare time. Some of those guys are real physical trainers outside of the sport. They just kind of come join a team out of their goodness of their hearts and wanted to be involved in a group, a sport team. And those guys helped me. I used to pick their brains tons, kind of bother them during the summer and be like, listen, I just need, give me something where, I got access to a pool. Do you have anything I can do with a pool? Type thing. Whether, I can get in a pool 3 days a week and, do some, laps or whatever, something a little more different, change it up instead of, like I said, just getting out on the hot concrete, pounding the shins that, take enough pounding as it is. So trying to, stay off parts that you needed, work parts that, you needed to grow and stuff. So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're not Terminator machines. Exactly. We have human bodies, and you can only take so many impacts in places like your knees and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, over the course of your career.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, now we've been doing, you did a shout out. I'm going to do a little shout out now to the CEO of Lax, Dave Barlow.
Yeah.
When he had mentioned that I was going to be interviewing, one of the stars of Edmonton Rush, I'm thinking Canada. I'm thinking I'm going to meet you over Skype, but here we are in person. Yep. So in Afton, Missouri, which is one of the municipalities in South St. Louis County. So we're not doing this over Skype. So you guys don't have, we're split screen on your computer screen, because of a table. But it could be worse. We could be split screen in two different Skype windows. So how did that happen? Why am I interviewing you in Missouri instead of Canada?
Well, a lot of the people know when I went to school, obviously, it was a co-ed school, so there's, boys and girls, and eventually I met
scandalous.
Met a young lady that was towards my end of my time there. So, it was probably, a junior, towards the end of my junior year and then into my senior year. We met this young lady from St. Louis. Ended up turning into be my girlfriend. Thinking, it's tough, when obviously I was going home playing in the summers. She was coming back here to St. Louis. And, you never know what can happen. I made visits here and there, and we kind of made it work. And that I was going back for what we call a victory lap in college, and she was going back for her normal senior year. So that worked out very, very well when I got to go back, and that was my first year actually playing. So I was, traveling a little bit, and having her come with me to games that were a little close to where we went to college in Erie, Pennsylvania, like games in Rochester, New York. So she got to kind of get a little taste of what this life is going to be about eventually. I probably couldn't predict that she would, 7 years from then, she would be flying with me to Denver or something like that and watching games. But we eventually stayed together, got married. Now that's why I'm here. It's one of those tales that I'm sure that there's plenty of Canadian athletes that have gone down, and maybe vice versa, whether it be men or women, have met someone and you don't want to leave them and you want to stick with them, whether you're living in St. Louis or who knows, Texas, Orlando, who knows? But
yeah, just personally for today, I think it's much cooler to meet you and interview you in person than it would have been on Skype.
Right.
You're a great guy, and we would have had a cool Skype conversation, but this is so much cooler.
Oh yeah, no, face to face is a lot better.
So, now lacrosse at this point is, and this isn't just fluff or whatever. The statistics bear this out. At this point in time, lacrosse is like the fastest growing sport on the face of the earth. What would you say, this is like a classic way to close these type of interviews, but what would you say to a young athlete who's just getting into it right now, like they're where you were years ago?
Yeah. If I could probably, say anything to them, it would be, don't just think lacrosse is the sport you're going to do for the rest of your life. Like I said, when I was playing, I was still doing a little bit of baseball, but also playing hockey in the winter. And then also, going to school and, playing basketball and stuff like that. But, don't just kind of focus on the one. It'll kind of bore you. It will, you'll lose interest. And some don't. I mean, there's the odd story where someone just, that's all they did, that's all they do, But do other stuff. What I always like to see now is probably like 10 years ago was a lot different, where people were playing lacrosse to stay in shape for football, stay in shape for track, for wrestling, for hockey, for soccer.
Now lacrosse has one of those sports. People play box lacrosse to stay in shape for lacrosse.
Exactly. I've had kids say like, yeah, no, I just started wrestling because it just helped me with footwork for lacrosse in the spring. So and it's cool to see that the transition from people doing stuff, people playing lacrosse just to stay in shape for other sports. Now we're playing other sports to stay in shape for lacrosse.
So it almost sounds like you're telling people, kind of like in the business world, diversify your resume.
Sure.
Only this is usually like the athlete version of diversify your resume.
Yeah, like I said, the burnt out is probably not the term I really wanted to use, but you got to expand. You got everything helps you prepare for anything really. Whether it be basketball, footwork, and the 5-on-5 system for lacrosse, can help you. Whether it be outdoor lacrosse, indoor lacrosse. You know, there's little things you can take from each little thing you do that can help progress in whatever you want to do, whatever sport you're going to play. In this case, lacrosse. You know, playing football helps. Playing hockey helps. Playing basketball, like I said, soccer. So don't just like kind of get tunnel vision, exactly, and do one thing. Kind of expand out. And in some kids, in this case, that are starting when they're like 14, 15, it's a little tough, to mix in all that. But when you're starting when you're like, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, like play with it. You don't want to just be like, I gotta, when lacrosse is going on in the summer, and you got, someone's making you play lacrosse. Like, if you want to go out and play with your buddies and go, bike riding or something, go do it. There's no harm, no foul, and do whatever you want to do when you're younger. Eventually, if it's meant to be, you'll come back full circle, like the Edmonton
Fair
came
enough.
back full circle.
Yes,
You'll come back.
absolutely.
It's meant to be. It's meant to be.
Fair enough. Well, you can probably tell the background noise is picking up a little bit, and we've kept Mike here for 20 minutes. So we're gonna, since things came full circle back to, it's a good place.
I think my order's ready. So
probably to sign us off. So thank you so much, Mike, and I will look forward on Laxut to network to keeping people up to speed on what's going on with you.
Awesome.
So thanks a lot.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.